I think the dam is breaking. I think this is, I mean, I lived through Watergate, right? I realize many of you listening or watching are young enough that you were not alive in the 70s and you didn't, you don't recall Watergate. Well, I was an adult in the 70s and I remember Watergate quite well. And the initial Watergate revelations actually came out before the 1970, whatever the year was, what was it, 76, I think was the midterm elections that year, before the election. And it just kind of got dismissed by the Republicans and by Nixon, and it was all like, well, yeah, no, it's a third-rate burglary. It's, there's, maybe some guys, broke into the Watergate and broke into, it was actually the Democratic National Committee's headquarters that were located in offices in the Watergate Hotel complex. There was a building, in addition to the hotel, there was also an office building. So anyhow, they were like, yeah, some rogue, guys might have broken in. And it took about a year before, in fact, I think you could argue it took even more than a year I guess this would have been the 72 elections, because 68 was the year that Nixon got first elected. So anyhow, it was really 73 that, Woodward and Bernstein came out and all this stuff broke, and then 74, as I recall, that Nixon resigned and Jerry Ford took over, and maybe it was late 73. I'd have to go back and look at the timeline. But you get the point. It takes a little time for the tipping point to be reached when you're talking about a scandal, particularly one that involves the President of the United States. I mean, nobody wants to, just on something that's flimsy or something that might be explainable or what, make major changes. Like, hey, let's take down the President of the United States. But I think that frankly, my personal belief is that the day that Pam Bondi started squealing about the Dow being at 50,000, that clip has gone viral. It's all over the place. It's all over the media. What hasn't typically gone with it is the question that precipitated it. The question that Jerry Nadler asked Pam Bondi when she referred to him as Mr. Raskin, the question that Jerry Nadler asked her was, have you investigated or prosecuted any of the men who are listed in the Epstein documents as, co-conspirators or whatever with Epstein? Now, I'm paraphrasing, but you can go back and look at it. It's words to that effect. And her response was, Merrick Garland never asked any of these people, and then Donald Trump, and then have you noticed the Dow's at 50,000? In other words, she didn't answer the question because she hasn't investigated or prosecuted a single one. Not one. Nobody has been arrested. Nobody's been investigated. The FBI hasn't showed up at anybody's house. Who's, this is one of the things they learned yesterday when in Congress, and by the way, none of the Republicans showed up for this. It was just the Democrats from the Congressional Committee who went to Les Wexner's 20-bedroom estate to interview him, because the Republicans didn't want to have anything to do with it, right? They are in on the cover-up. So, but even when they went to interview Wexner, one of their questions of him was, have you talked to the FBI? And his answer was, no, they never came by. Now, this is the guy who gave Epstein the plane. This is the guy who gave Epstein the mansion in New York. This is the guy who gave Epstein, functionally hundreds of millions of dollars. Epstein, a college dropout, a guy with no financial background whatsoever. So, clearly there's a cover-up going on right now here in the United States.